I'll follow the lawyer's habit of standing to address the court as moderator, and I want to welcome you to the continuation of this morning's session. As Suzanne described before the intermission, we had the historical background of the emergence of Jews in the legal profession at our first session this morning, and we follow that now with speakers, two of the leading contemporary Jewish lawyers in this profession in the United States. They will be followed by two academics delivering papers, and finally by an academic commentator. It's my pleasure to introduce the first of our lawyer speakers, Kenneth Bialkin. And Kenneth has done everything in the Jewish community, in the organized bar, and in the profession. Ken is the former chairman of the Conference of Presidents of Major Jewish Organizations, the leading lay Jewish organization in the country. He has served as president of the American Jewish Historical Society, and he has served as national chairman of the Anti-Defamation League, among his many Jewish activities. His organized bar activities have included the presidency of the New York County Lawyers Association, about which we heard so much in the first panel, and I understand he was formerly chair of the business law section of the American Bar Association. That's the largest section in the American Bar Association. And he is, of course, a leading corporate and transactional lawyer, particularly in the areas of corporate finance, corporate governance, and mergers and acquisitions. And I understand, among other claims to fame, he is Sandy Weil's lawyer. So it's with great pleasure I introduce our first speaker, Kenneth Bialkin.
Thank you. Thank you. I've been asked to speak, I think, largely on an experiential basis. That is, I don't have statistics or broad generalizations that I can support with authority, but I do have more than 50 years of activity. Graduated from law school in 1953, and I'm still at it. My partners think I'm full-time engaged in working for Skadden Arps. I like them to think that. I do a few other things on the side. But I wanted to, let me get right into it. I think in talking about the transformation of American law firms, I think the subject has to be considered in the context of development elsewhere. That is, law practice and law firm existence doesn't exist apart from society and culture in which we exist, particularly, let's say, the post-World War II. World War II changed the world, and barriers began to break down in many places. We all know as Jews that discrimination existed, continues to exist, and will probably continue in one form or another. But the economy has changed rapidly. The growth of societies has been unprecedented. It couldn't and hasn't ever been predicted to be what it is. And we were there, Jews were there, as things were happening. And when we talk about evolution, do look at it and say, what happened in business? What happened in the financial and investment world? What happened in academia? What happens in education? And so the breakdown of the barrier to Jewish hiring, I think, is a part of that. My personal existence, I think I'll say a moment about it, because I am now, when I was young, I always thought it would be very nice to be a member of the establishment. I knew there was an establishment out there and maybe I would join it. For some years now, I'm told that I am a member of the establishment, and I keep looking around and wonder where it is. And when you're in the establishment, you learn there is no establishment, except in the eyes and the vision of people who look and generalize and think there is. So I think my own personal experience, I'm a first-generation American. I was born in the Bronx. I didn't grow up in poverty, but I didn't grow up in wealth. I didn't know a lawyer. Nobody in my family knew a lawyer. I've been amused at various times in my practice and meeting young lawyers and even some partners who've come to me at times and assumed, they said, "Isn't it true that your father was a judge?" Well, of course it's not. And I joined the Wilkie firm, which actually was an emanation of the Charles Boston practice, and I moved to Skadden Arps 18 years ago. And so I think I have a basis for a picture. After I became interested in Jewish life, Jewish affairs, I grew up with a Jewish education, but I grew up in the New York City public schools, did not go to anything except the Hebrew school, which I abjured, where I didn't learn very much. But it was only after law school, where I happened to go to Israel with my wife on a trip because it was cheap in 1959, when I had been practicing for 6 or 7 years, that I became interested really in Jews, Judaism, and Jewish life when my reading and experience started. When I became a Zionist, which I still am, and when a good part of my non-working life was devoted to the Jewish people. I became active initially in the American Jewish Committee, but moved to the ADL, which was more suited to my personality. I became the national chairman of the ADL in about 1982. I was chairman of the Conference of Presidents of Marriage American Jewish Organizations, all the time practicing as well as I could. I became the president of the JCRC, some of you there in the 1990s. I'm still laboring in the vineyard. I'm chairman of the America-Israel Friendship League. I'm president of the American Jewish Historical Society. I'm a member of I don't know how many boards and organizations, and all this time I've devoted my life to the practice of law. I also for 20 years lectured as an adjunct professor at NYU, where I taught several generations of students what they know about the securities laws. So I think I have a perch for a picture on the law firm business, because I'm now a partner in what is believed by many to be the largest law firm in the world. I'm a part of that and have been, as I said, for the last 18 years. And I was a co-chairman of a large firm for almost 30 years before that. So I think I have a basis for a picture. When I came to work, as we most know, most firms, the big firms, the elite firms, many of which names are still around today, weren't hiring many Jews. Probably a few of us were hired beginning in the 50s. Most of the Jews that were hired by the elitist firms in the earlier days gravitated toward the tax department. Not so many were in the corporate department. Yet, a known or an unknown truth is that most of the large firms, the elitist firms who are thought of as being part of the establishment, they all had some Jewish partners, believe it or not, going back long before. And it wasn't so well known because they didn't advocate their Jewishness, but Sullivan Cromwell, as we all know, not only today, but had Eustace Seligman, they had Alfred Jaretsky, very prominent people who figured in important developments in the law, and they were there. Simpson Thatcher had Ed Wiesel. There were White and Case, a prototypical white shoe firm, had Colonel Hartfield, who was Jewish.